Perhaps some of you watched the amazing Seder supplement featuring members of our spiritual leadership team and a few special guests. If not, you can watch it tonight, tomorrow, the next day. How did it happen? Well, in early February, Lorne sent out an email to his teammates requesting that we bring greetings for the festival and to share a brief thought or teaching about one aspect of the Haggadah. And so that nobody would fight, he brilliantly pre-assigned the steps of the Haggadah to each of us. As I scrolled down that first email, I was delighted. I was elated. I was quite relieved that Lorne assigned me to speak about Magid. Because Magid is the heart of the Seder. It is where so much of the action is. Without Magid, we have no story to tell. And Magid is where we can be creative, and Magid is where we expound, and where we can bring in Divrei Torah, and where we can dress up, and where we play with frogs. It starts with Halach Ma'anya, it moves to the 4 questions, and then when we were slaves in Egypt, the story of the rabbis and the all-nighter, and it keeps going and going and going, and going and going, and going and going. So I thought that since I've already talked a little bit for a minute and a half about Magid, this morning I would tackle a much more obscure section of the Haggadah, which is Nirtzah, better known as the end. This is how it begins. Chasal Sidur Pesach kehilchato, kechol mishpato v'chukato, kasher zachinu l'sader oto, ken nizke lasoto, zach shochen me'ona, Komem kahaladat mimana, bekarov nehel nite kana, pduyim litzion berina. I don't know if that's how it goes for all of you, but that's how I remember my Zeta saying it, and so any Seder I've been to, that's how I do Chasal Sidur Pesach. You? Do you do it that way, Sydney?
No.
Not at all.
Of course, you have to catch Sovereign's melody that everybody knows here.
Yeah, so that's my melody, right? But once we say Chasal Sidur Pesach Kehilchato, the Seder is for all intents and purposes over. It's done. And so this prayer that was written by Rabbi Yosef Tov Elem in the 11th century in France, it expresses the desire that all of our efforts to perform the Seder properly may be pleasing and acceptable to God. And we also say, of course, L'shana haba'a b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem, with intention that in 364 days we will all do it all over again in a fully restored world and a fully restored Jerusalem. Insert your own political concept right now about elections there. But of course, Chasal Sidur Pesach is not actually the end of Pesach, right? It's the end of the pageantry of the Sedarim, but Pesach isn't over. It's a week-long holiday. Chag HaMatzot tishmor shiv'at yamim tochal matzot. You shall observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread, eating unleavened bread for 7 days, is what we read in chapter 23 of Exodus. And we say it again in chapter 34, Et Chag HaMatzot tishmor shivat yamim tochal matzot. You shall observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread, eating unleavened bread for 7 days. And in both the Torah reading and the Maftir, we read again about this holiday. It's more than just the last 2 days. So here's my question. Once the Seders are done, aside from not eating chametz, which I acknowledge is a big deal, and adding a few things to our daily tefillah, what are we supposed to do for the next 4 days of Chol HaMoed, when we no longer offer sacrifices? Because we have 4 days of Chol HaMoed coming up, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just like the 4 questions, just like the 4 children, and just like the 4 cups of wine I drank last night. And so in the spirit of the Israelites who left Egypt, this year I suggest that each day during Chol HaMoed, we try something that we have not been able to do for whatever reason. Because we are a resilient people. We are good at trying again. I mean, think about it. How many times did Moses say to Pharaoh, "Let my people go"? For example, for nearly 50 years, I have been trying to master one simple party trick, and I can't do it yet. Every year, for about a week, I try to break a square matzah perfectly down the middle. Now, obviously, shmura matzah is impossible. I don't even bother attempting with that cardboard. But the boxed squares, I try, and I try, and I try, and I just can't do it. Because I want both sides of my avocado matzah to be equal. But it never happens. And in spite of that, I keep on trucking, and I'm going to do it again later today. And we do things like that all the time. We try, and we try again. And it doesn't make us imbeciles for continually trying. What it does is, it shows us what we're built of. It shows what's in our DNA, and that is perseverance and resilience and the aspiration to be better. On each of the 4 days of Chol HaMoed, I challenge you to try something that you have not done yet. Maybe you call a grandchild and you ask for help again on something technological. Don't be embarrassed by it. Your grandchildren love you. Or maybe you try something new in your exercise routine. Add some time or add some weight that you've never been able to do before. Or maybe you try to attempt to, you know what you haven't been able to do yet. You fill in the blank. Now the Seders are over, but Pesach is not. We still have quite some time left with our beloved Pesach dishes and our paper plates and the recipes that we only make during Chol HaMoed. I encourage you to create some goals during this long afternoon, this long, beautiful afternoon, so that you will be able to make meaning during these middle days of the Chag. Of course, we'll be back for the last 2 days of the Chag, including 2 different Yizkor opportunities, as well as a gorgeous Shabbat at the floor. But until then, I welcome you and I invite you to find a way to elevate these days of Chol HaMoed the best that you can. Chag Kasher V'Sameach.